A disturbing new survey is out about teen dating violence and the ability of high school counselors to deal with it. Prior studies have found up to 30% of teens have been physically hurt by a boyfriend or girlfriend. Despite that number, the counselors at schools say they're not prepared or trained to help or report incidents of this kind of violence. 550 high school counselors were questioned for the August issue of Pediatrics. 81% said their schools did not have a plan for responding to reports of dating violence. 90% surveyed said that they hadn't had training on the subject within the last 2 years. 61% so said that they had to help victims of teen violence within the last 2 years. So this is happening. So if schools aren't able to help teens in dating violence situations, what are we supposed to do? Joining me now to sort this out is clinical psychologist Dr. Sunaina Jain. Dr. Jain, we were just talking about this during the break. We couldn't wait to actually tackle this. Are you surprised by these numbers?
No, the only surprise that anyone is surprised.
Yeah, it's actually distressing. And you said to me a moment ago that you're surprised that the numbers aren't actually higher.
Well, we don't know the real numbers, but the estimates are that anywhere up to 30-35% of children, especially girls, have been sexually assaulted by the time they reach high school.
And let's talk about put it in context as it relates to boys and girls and how they're affected and what may be happening to them. What are the differences?
Well, according to the statistics, most of the victims are girls. And when boys are victims, they're usually victims of other boys or men. So it still remains primarily a girl's problem.
So how is it that the people that they see on a daily basis in school have not been equipped with the tools to address this, to handle this? How is that happening?
Well, I think it's still seen as somewhat of a rarity, which is where we started off with saying, it's the only surprise that it's a surprise. I mean, when that adolescents will act out sexually, or given the time of life that they're in, that they will experiment, that they will push limits, that they will test their own power and their own capacity to form and maintain relationships, is not new, is not surprising.
Okay, so if a young woman or young man goes to a counselor and says that this is happening in my relationship, where do you think is the disconnect with the way that it's being handled?
Because there's no protocol, or that it's still seen as a rarity, not as something that can almost be expected as part of growing up in today's world, where violence and power plays, and having your own way is kind of accepted or expected.
So what should the protocol be?
Well, that's a good question. I think first and foremost, any protocol that involves children should have a very strong preventive component. So that boys and girls in high school are prepared to come into this very, very difficult time of life when their primary job is to form relationships, is to form that romantic or loving relationship with a partner, and testing out what being in a partnership relationship is going to be like for them. And adolescence is unfortunately a difficult time for that kind of experimentation, because adolescents developmentally are not ready to do this without guidance. So again, talking about dating, talking about power, talking about relationships and what it means to be male or female in a relationship is extremely important.
Should part of the protocol be to bring in the parent as well?
Absolutely. This is, there's a wonderful quote from the founder of IBM said, when you hire a person for their skills, but the whole person shows up for work. When you bring a child to school to educate, you bring the whole child to school. And that child has a family, that child has a school, that child has peers. So all of those elements need to be integrated in any response, particularly with a focus on prevention and alerting children and alerting them to the signs when things are going too far.
So most definitely, so that they don't feel like that this becomes normalized.
Exactly.
Okay, Dr. Jain, thank you very much for the conversation. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right.